used music to show how serious they are about shutting down the music at Fiddler's Green because of Greenwood Village City Council's position on protecting police officers. But is City Council listening? Today we asked. The numbers behind Denver's gun violence shows just how big of a problem it is, but the way you are stepping up is showing the community is a formidable match serious about stopping it. A broken promise to survivors of sexual abuse, how the state is working to close a dangerous loophole. A survivor of the Firestone home explosion wants a political ad taken down. Republican Senator Cory Gardner agrees, but says it's not in his power to do so. That's next.
August 3rd, mark your calendars because that is the date the city of Denver is operating off of to identify and decide if there needs to be additional restrictions in the city because of COVID-19. They started working on this before the state's announcement this week. About 15 counties that received variances but are seeing enough of an increase in cases that they needed to present a mitigation plan or backtrack their reopenings. Denver's mitigation plan so far, it's including details about re-emphasizing testing. This is in particular for vulnerable populations as well as minority communities. The city says it wants to flag the state health department on testing events in those communities to hopefully cut down on wait times. It also wants to continue requirements around wearing masks. And as of Monday, the city had already started working with law enforcement and dedicated additional staff just to make sure that people and businesses are following the rules. Again, August 3rd, that is the day the city will be updating CDPHE on its mitigation strategies. Now, the state processed more than 11,000 tests yesterday, and the state does continue to up its daily average in the month of July. Our positivity rate, however, that continues to inch upwards, but it is still below that critical 5% mark. For the second day in a row, we saw a drop in COVID-19 hospitalizations. 247 people are currently in a hospital being treated for COVID-19. 45 patients have been discharged or transferred in the last 24 hours. Colorado added 639 new cases today. That, unfortunately, caused a big jump in our 7-day average. That's the trend we've been watching. It is now up over 500 cases a day. So I know that we sound a lot like a broken record, right? We've been telling you if you have a medical or mental health emergency or need care to call 911, go to your doctor, get the help that you need. It is something that I have personally talked about over and over again here on this show. But this is where I failed. I tell you this story with the blessing of my mom. She fell down over the summer and had put off an MRI because she was nervous about going in because of COVID-19. And when she finally did, the doctor said she needed to go in for surgery right away. She's recovering well, which is really the only reason I even have the bandwidth to talk about this. And I realized that I didn't follow the same advice that I had given you so many times. I assumed everything was okay. So I have a new ask tonight that I hope you will consider. It is not for the patients or the people who are sick, but it's for those who are around them and care for them. And start asking questions. Make sure that they're getting the health care they need, COVID or not COVID related. Follow up, be a little annoying if you have to be, and make sure you're talking to them about what it takes to feel comfortable to go to the doctor and help make that happen. Just because there is a pandemic does not mean that we have to stop taking care of ourselves. Now, there was a promise that was broken in Colorado to survivors of sexual abuse and violence. Now there is a new law in place that is closing a loophole that is making sure the most serious sex offenders in Colorado are going through treatment before they're released into a halfway house.
Very important piece of justice for victims and closure because they very much don't want it to happen to someone else.
So over nearly 20 years, 82 people have been transferred to community corrections or halfway homes without lowering their risk to offend. Part of the reason is resources, but also to keep in mind, halfway houses, they don't have that same level of monitoring and security. So the bill signed into law earlier this month would make sure that treatment happens while they're still behind bars.
not treatment alone that's effective, it's treatment and supervision. Certainly it moves the needle, not for every person and not in every case, and sometimes it doesn't move the needle far enough. But we have to keep our promise to victims that we've done everything that we can to ensure that these people will not reoffend. And we can't feasibly and shouldn't keep them incarcerated, at least all of them, for the rest of their lives. And so this is the balance that's struck.
So the Department of Corrections says that they're still sorting through all of the rules because, after all, this law is relatively new. Year over year, gun violence in Denver has been going up. And unfortunately, we're already seeing that play out in 2020, and we're only halfway through the year. Our Lori Lizarraga and Brian Wendland have been learning about why this is happening.
This time last year, 83 men, women, and children in Denver had been injured or killed in a shooting. This year, there have been 118 victims of gun violence, according to police. That's a 42% increase in gun violence and a 50% increase in death at the hands of guns in Denver. 18 of those shot this year have been kids, 17 and younger, like Xavier Collier, Moses Harris, and Davari Armstrong. DPD's data shows us totals, but it also shows trends, like where gun violence is happening. Denver Police breaks the county into 7 districts. District 3, for example, includes neighborhoods like Wash Park, Cherry Creek, and University Hills. There have been 11 shootings in District 3 all year. Neighborhoods like Montbello, Five Points, Montclair, Elyria Swansea, Northfield Stapleton, and Green Valley Ranch make up Districts 2 and 5. Between them, there have been 59 shootings so far this year, a 168% increase in violence in those districts from last year. The most distinct difference in the shooting data is race. If violence was happening at a similar rate across all races, violence victims in Denver would be mostly white, because the county is more than half white. But that's not how it's happening. In fact, only 19% of shootings this year involve a white victim. 29% of the population are Latino Hispanic. They represent 32% of all shooting victims. The smallest of all three, Denver County's 10% Black population, and yet 48% of all shootings this year have hurt or killed someone who is Black. The data tells a story that has been told for years. Violence in Denver County is rising, especially in Black communities. They know it because they're living it. Today, with more attention and more support, they're working to change it. For Next, with photojournalist Brian Wendland, I'm Lori Lizarraga.
A few examples of what is happening in the community. There have been anti-violence rallies every week this month, a lot of times led by our youth, and also a lot of nonprofits working in these communities. They lost a ton of money because of COVID, so now they're working with the cities to try to get some of that money back. And there is a way that you can help as well.
Denver is seeing a youth violence problem like we have not seen in a while. Teenagers have become the target, even those that police say are not involved in gangs. There's a really impressive nonprofit that's been on the ground in Montbello for more than a decade. The city of Denver just gave them a micro grant to continue their work against youth violence. But honestly, our Word of Thanks micro giving campaign has the potential to give them that kind of funding many times over, so they can really expand their work when it's most needed. The word of thanks that comes to mind when I think of the nonprofit Struggle of Love is safe. Struggle of Love CEO Lakeisha Hodge told me that kids in her program in far northeast Denver just want to feel safe. They often are fearful. They're fearful of how COVID-19 will impact their families, fearful of how easy it is for kids their age to get guns. Struggle of Love works with young people to give them not just that safe place, but also the skills that they need to stay out of trouble and succeed. City of Denver praised them for pivoting to open up a food bank, because that's what they saw that families in Montbello needed these days to feel safe and loved and protected. We have the opportunity to build on that boost that Struggle of Love just received from the city's microgrant, so that even more kids in northeast Denver can have that safe place outside of school and can see that path to a future that's free of violence. If you're in for $5, then I will match the first 50 $5 donations. If you text the word thanks to 303-871-1491, we'll send you a link to donate. You can always find it on our social media pages as well. Youth violence is taking teenagers in Denver this summer. Here's an opportunity for all of us across Colorado to say that we stand with the people who are working day and night to keep those kids safe. Thank you.
We finally hear why Greenwood Village said police officers should not have to personally pay if they break the law.
Why in the world would I possibly think about repealing it? It makes no sense.
One city councilor's reasoning for why their officers need to be protected. She just wants the ad to be taken down, and it looks like even a phone call with one of Colorado's most powerful Republicans won't make that happen. Next.
Greenwood Village is going to exempt its police officers from a section of a new state law in the name of safety. That is according to City Councilman Dave Bullock, who took issue with the commentary from Kyle from earlier this month about the city's decision to exempt its officers from part of that new law that could hold an officer financially liable if they break the law while on duty. Today, the councilman defended that decision in an interview with our Marshall Zellinger.
I'll just quote the full Kyle Clark quote, the back end of it. If you want the full protection of Colorado's police reform bill, don't live in Greenwood Village, don't work in Greenwood Village, don't shop in Greenwood Village, and if you choose to drive through Greenwood Village, you do so at your own risk. Isn't it true if you live, work, shop, or drive through Greenwood Village, you don't get full protection of Senate Bill 217?
It's not quite that simple, and let me explain why. The reason why we passed this resolution is because we wanted to make sure that we created a safe environment for the residents and the businesses of Greenwood Village and the visitors that come. If you cannot hold on, if you cannot retain your good police officers, then your city becomes a much more dangerous place to live. Most police officers just are not willing to accept the financial liability on top of the life-threatening, day-to-day things that they have to go through to be able to do their job. And so we chose to indemnify them from the financial liability, but it does not protect them nor give them license to commit an illegal act.
If a Greenwood Village police officer broke the law while on duty and the city gets sued because of that action, why should that officer not be liable up to that $25,000 that the state lawmakers put into that bill?
Well, I just answered that question. I talked about what a life-threatening type of job that police officers have. And you know, the other thing too is that the motivation for them to stay out of jail is a far greater motivation than what the finances that they're going to lose.
Greenwood Village's demographics, 84% white, 5% Hispanic, about 3% black. The median household income is about $127,000 a year, which is almost double of Colorado as a whole. That's a short way of saying Greenwood Village is overwhelmingly white and affluent. How can this community really understand the concerns the rest of Colorado experiences and the rest of the country experience with police accountability?
We are not trying to tell other communities what they should do in their particular neighborhoods. All we know is that we can make the decisions, and we have to make the right kind of decisions for Greenwood Village. I'm not a city council member in another city. I'm a city council member for Greenwood Village, and so it was incumbent upon us to do what was right for our city.
Any intention to vote to remove it?
Well, I'm only one council member, and so I cannot speak for the others. We do speak together often. My sense is among the council that there is no motivation to repeal the resolution. I will tell you from a personal standpoint, when I have over 95% of the residents that live in my district that say they support this resolution, why in the world would I possibly think about repealing it? It makes no sense.
So Marshall also asked the councilman why Greenwood Village would want to keep an officer who would rather quit than be held to the same state law as other officers. You can see that full response in the unedited 20-minute video that we are working on uploading to the next YouTube channel. We also asked the councilman about the recent musical protests and threat by local bands to boycott Fiddler's Green.
Senator Cory Gardner says if he had the power, he'd have this ad about the Firestone home explosion pulled. The woman who lost family to that blast thinks he could if he really wanted to. Next.
Erin Martinez was horrified when she saw the explosion that killed her husband and brother was being used in a political ad. She wants Republican Senator Cory Gardner to use his influence to make sure that ad is taken down. Now, Mark Martinez and Joey Irwin were killed in the house explosion in Firestone in 2017. The ad is from the National Republican Senatorial Committee, and it's claiming Hickenlooper let the oil and gas company off the hook with no fine. The fine came down just after he was out of office. The state issued a record $18 million penalty earlier this year. Erin Martinez said that she wants that ad taken down and then call Senator Gardner's office to make that happen. So that conversation did happen yesterday, and Senator Gardner's campaign then sent a statement that said, "I spoke to Erin Martinez and expressed to her that I would not have personally run the ad, and I hope the ad comes down. If I had the power to take down the ad, I would." In response, what Erin Martinez says is Senator Gardner underestimates his power to have the ad taken down if he publicly speaks forcefully to make it happen. After talking to him, I wonder if he really understands the harm the ad has inflicted. The NRCS tells us that they have no plans to pull that ad. Now, Martinez says it took Gardner and his staff more than 4 days to respond to that initial phone call. A Gardner spokesperson said that they did receive the voicemail Monday and they called back that day to schedule a call between both of them. Speaking of Senator Gardner, his Great American Outdoors Act now needs President Trump's signature after passing through the House. It would fully fund the Land and Water Conservation Fund. It's also going to be using money from offshore oil and gas drilling for facility repairs and infrastructures in our national parks, forests, and recreation areas.
After another hot summer day with highs near 100, some welcome rain showers along the Front Range. They're isolated in nature. They won't last long, and the storms bringing wind and lightning, something we don't need with temperatures in the mid-90s and triple digits across the eastern plains. Thunder and lightning early. We'll get another stray shower coming off the foothills, the heavy rain west of the Continental Divide, and that's also where we're seeing wind reports this afternoon. Tonight, that tropical flow begins to shift. We see clearing late. Storms return to western Colorado tomorrow, and 1 or 2 may drift over the urban corridor, but only a 20% chance of rain on Thursday. A stray shower, rumble of thunder tonight, then clearing, low 65, sunshine and 93 tomorrow with an afternoon storm. A better chance of rain from storms over the weekend and for the first part of next week. Hello to that tropical flow of monsoon moisture.
Our Word of Thanks microgiving project this week supports Struggle of Love. It's a small nonprofit preventing youth violence in Northeast Denver. They've been around for more than a decade, and they're seeing a tragically violent summer this year. Struggle of Love is working every day and every night to keep those kids safe and to give them the tools to succeed and to avoid violence. Text THANKS to 303-871-1491 and we'll send you a link to donate. You can find it on our social media pages. I ask you to consider chipping in $5. As always, I'll personally match the first 50 of those contributions. You have raised $300,000 for Colorado nonprofits in the first 7 weeks of Word of Thanks. Let's keep it rolling tonight to support Struggle of Love. Thank you.
Well, Jason said, thanks for talking about self-care tonight. If ever there was a time to take care of each other, it's now. See you next time.